This is Greg Pasternak from Riverside Life, and today I'm in Cambria, California, in the South Central Coast region, and I'm at Santa Rosa Creek. So this creek is classified as a statewide Class 8, which is a partially confined gravel cobble uniform bed channel. And in the regional classification for the South Central Coast, it's classified as a confined gravel cobble uniform. So they both agree on the gravel cobble and uniform, but the difference is the effect of confinement versus partially confined. Now, you know, we're in an urban area, and we're also close to the ocean, and you can see that it's actually quite entrenched. And I'm going to be panning around a little bit, but just looking across at the opposite bank, the valley floor is way up at that level. So again, we're at another entrenched site. When you have entrenched rivers, you have a lot of bank collapse issues and things like that. If we look on this side, actually, I'm going to come around over here. You can see, well, my junk on the ground, but you can see that there's this big tree along here. It could have been placed, it could be natural, I don't know. There's a lot of restoration projects going on here. But, you know, again, you can see that well, it's hard to see, but anyway, the valley floor is up there. So whether it's confined or partially confined, you can't really say from just looking at this so much. In terms of the metrics, it has about a 300-meter valley floor width, which is, you know, right in that kind of partially confined to confined, you know, zone. So it's a little bit indeterminate, but that's okay. That's not so important. I mean, what we try to understand is, like, to what extent is the valley confinement playing a role in defining what's happening in the channel and how we might manage the channel. So that's something that we try to think about more. I'm trying to set this a little bit so I'm not standing so much in there. There we go. Okay, so this is the view looking upstream, and as we look upstream, we are right at the measurement site. You know, this is right here, and when you look upstream, it does look fairly uniform. Let's look at the channel here. The channel width. This reminds me a little bit of some of the other urban sites we've been seeing on this trip, where, you know, because of the entrenchment, we have these very steep walls. The width tends to be quite uniform, and you know, when you look in this direction, you don't really see any bed undulation at all. And metrically for where this is, and you know, the very low values for bed undulation and width undulation here. And so I think that, you know, we can visually confirm that that's true. In terms of the substrate, when you look at this gravel bar in the distance, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on it. This gravel bar where my hand is, yeah, it's made up of gravel and cobble. If I turn and look into the bed is much more like coarse sand. So there's really a mix, but the sand could also be somewhat of a veneer. You can see there's some algae in here, and so, you know, this just probably hasn't had a flood in a while to really clear that out. So I think the substrate characterization is, you know, reasonable. You can get a sense of that uniformity. Now I'm going to spin the camera to show the downstream, which may not have been part of that measurement site, but it's also interesting to see because it is a little bit different in its context. And let's see if I can just widen this back out a little bit. Okay, so what do we see looking downstream? Well, it's just a little different. In this downstream area, a little bit where my hand is, there's a lot of sun down in here where my hand is, and there's actually some stepping down going on. I don't mean steps, but just there's some drops here that I would classify as riffle pool, but with a very subtle bed undulation. You know, it doesn't take much when you have these low flows to make it look prominent. The slope is a little steeper there than it was at the measurement site. But I don't think that these are dramatic enough bed undulations anyway, even if they had been measured, to transition it to call it a pool riffle or bed undulating site compared to just sticking with a uniform site, and especially because the width is relatively uniform. You can see that there is a pretty large gravel bar that has deposited there, and we are seeing some alternating deposits on one side of the bank versus the other. So that is promoting some low flow constriction. But when you get to the bankfull flow conditions, you know, when all this is sort of underwater, then you're just not going to really be noticing that variability. So obviously this isn't as flat as like when if you've seen the video for the Kiama site, or if you go and watch the video for the Kiama site, that is a really flat site, at least where I recorded the video, I should say. But the numbers for here are in the zone where they're not bed undulating. So we're seeing this consistent pattern where we have our sites that are partially confined or even unconfined, but they're in an urban setting. And as a result of that urban setting and the entrenchment associated with the management and land use and history of these rivers, then that's resulted in them functioning more like a confined river. So it would make it very hard to really evaluate the difference in natural rivers for unconfined, partially confined, or confined settings. But we could perhaps study entrenchment versus non-entrenchment. And at some point I'll probably make a video talking about how we manage entrenched rivers as sort of another topic. But anyway, I think that gives you a sense for this site on Santa Rosa Creek in Cambria. So thanks for watching the video.